The economy, jobs, gas prices, border security, the debt. We're just scratching the surface. There are so many issues that impact you. 4 candidates, Frank Antonori, Jesse Kelly, Martha McSally, and Dave Sitton, think they have the answers to all the issues. Live from the Quail Creek Country Club, KNST, and the Republican Club of Green Valley and Sahuarita bring you the CD8 candidate debate, moderated by Bruce Ash. And here's tonight's MC, Garrett Lewis, on KNST AM 790 and now 97.1 FM.
All right. We are just days away for the people that haven't cast their vote early. I hope you enjoy this. We're going to find out some very interesting things tonight from all the candidates. You just heard exactly who they are. We are going to have 3 segments. There's going to be just 3 short commercial breaks. And we are going to break down the questions in certain segments so you know what's coming up. And coming up in the first segment is simply going to be the economy, jobs, and the debt limit. That's what's going to come up this segment, and I'll let you know as we get to the end of this segment what will be the next one. And like you just heard, I'm going to be hosting, but Bruce Ash will be the moderator asking the questions, and Bruce is going to introduce some of the rules and call on the candidates to introduce themselves.
Thank you very much, Garrett, and welcome everybody to the debate here at Quail Creek. Our 4 candidates in the special election for CD8 congressional seat are here with us this evening: Frank Antonori, Dave Sitton, Martha McSally, and Jesse Kelly. We're going to start this evening with introductions, and ladies and gentlemen, this will be a 30-second introduction, and when we go from Mr. Antonori to Mr. Kelly, we'll come back to Mr. Antonori for our first question. So, Frank, take it away.
Well, it's again great to be back in Quail Creek. I actually started my political career down here, and I kicked off the campaign in Green Valley, so it's great to be amongst so many great friends, and thanks for coming out tonight. I'm State Senator Frank Antonori. I'm the one guy in this race who's got the track record that you can count on. I'm the only vetted candidate. Trust me, after dealing with the Arizona Daily Star, I'm vetted for 4 years. We're gonna take a message to Washington, and I want you to send that message. You send a message that we want to balance the budget like we did in Arizona. We're going to cut spending like we did in Arizona, and we're going to fight illegal immigration and secure the border. You want to send a message to Washington? Send Frank Antonori to Washington.
Thank you very much. Our next candidate is Dave Sitton.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Dave Sitton. I'm here to ask for your vote. I'm running in this special district to be your special district election to be your representative in Washington, D.C. I've been here for nearly 4 decades now. I've served here in business the entire time and a wide variety of community projects. I'm running for health care reform, for real job creation through the free enterprise system, and finally to secure our borders. I'd be proud to earn your vote tonight, and for those of you who've already voted, hopefully I can say thank you to a couple of you.
Thank you very much. Our next candidate is Martha McSally.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. I'm Martha McSally, and for those that don't know me, I'm a retired Air Force colonel and fighter pilot, served my country for 26 years in uniform. I was the first woman to fly in combat in U.S. history and the first to command a squadron in combat. I worked on Capitol Hill for a year for Senator John Kyle, where I learned how to get things done in D.C. I took on the Pentagon for making our servicewomen wear Muslim garb in Saudi Arabia, put my career on the line, filed a lawsuit, and then used what I learned on Capitol Hill and got legislation passed to overturn that unconstitutional policy once and for all. I'm looking for your vote. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Jesse Kelly.
Thank you to everybody for coming out. Thank you to everybody who's listening. I am Jesse Kelly. I'm a United States Marine Corps combat veteran. I'm a businessman. I'm a husband and father of 2 boys, and I want to use my 30 seconds, because this is our last debate, to thank my perfect wife, Aubrey, who came out tonight. Without her, life is not worth living. So thank you, Aubrey, very much. I love you.
Thank you all. We're ready to start the questioning. Candidates, each of you will have 1 minute for your answers. We'll be keeping a strict time limit, and I want you please to make sure that you're watching our timekeeper. We're handling the economy, jobs, and the debt limit first. And the first question is for Mr. Antonori. When you take office in June of 2012, it is likely you may be called upon to cast a vote to increase the current debt limit of nearly $15 trillion further. Under what circumstances would you consider increasing the debt limit?
Well, we're facing record spending in the federal government like we haven't seen in our nation's history. The current president has basically eclipsed every president up till George Bush and the amount of spending that he's gone and increased our debt. It's ridiculous. We're spending $50,000 a second, $3 million in the amount of time I answered this question. Just think of the ridiculousness of what we're doing in this country. You've got to send somebody up there that knows how to cut spending, knows how to shrink government, and I'm the guy that's done that. You've got to hold the line on spending, and in order to do that, you've got to make sure that they don't bully you into just raising the debt limit, raising the debt limit, raising the debt limit to justify more spending. The only way we reduce that debt limit is if we have equal amounts of reductions in the size of government and the amount of spending. You don't just raise the debt limit just for the sake of extending and continuing the debt. There are times when you do it and there's times not. It took us 3 years to balance the budget in Arizona. It's going to take us a little time to do it at the federal level. You're going to have to raise the debt limit, but you don't do it without cutting spending.
Thank you very much. Dave Sitton.
It's amazing to me that Congress, as it's run today, waits until the last minute to discuss raising the debt limit, like a bunch of college kids who forget to study until the night before and they cram it all in at us, holding us hostage each and every time. I think we need a Congress that will take on the debt limit in a more timely fashion, in a more measured fashion, and include the spending cuts that are necessary to make raising the debt limit unnecessary as soon as possible. The last time they tried this on us, they told us that all the government would shut down. Sometimes you wonder if that's not a good idea. But in any event, ladies and gentlemen, we need an adult in the room in Washington, D.C. that's going to take on the debt ceiling discussion before it's in the last 24 hours.
Thank you. Colonel McSally.
This administration has caused having to raise the debt limit 6 times already under this administration. This debt that we have, which is approaching $16 trillion, is the biggest threat to our national security, to our prosperity, and our freedom of action around the world. This is serious business, you guys. We have got to get this under control if we want to have America be the superpower that it is and have freedom of action to be able to defend and prosper and have freedom. So we need to show some serious fiscal discipline. We need to pass a balanced budget amendment. We need to cap our spending as a percentage of our GDP. Around 18% is that right thing that we need to be moving towards. Right now we're at like 24%. And we need to show fiscal discipline that we haven't shown since the last time the debt limit has been increased. $1 trillion a year we go into further debt under this administration. So we have got to show that fiscal discipline and grow the economy so we can turn this thing around and get it going in the right direction. We've shown no discipline even since the last limit. We need leadership and moral courage to do that.
Jesse Kelly.
The only way we can raise the debt limit in this nation is if a concrete plan is presented that says we will never have to raise it ever again. That the next time we deal with the debt limit is to lower the debt limit. Unless that plan is presented, the answer is no. I will not vote to raise the debt limit in any way. Obviously, the spending has been discussed. We need to lower taxes so our economy can grow, get the government smaller and off our backs, so we can have a massive economy, a robust economy again, and we can do that. Win a special election here, win an election in November, not only here, but Lord willing, change this president. We can get back to where we are, and that's a free nation with a small government.
Thank you. Our second question will start with Dave Sitton. The U.S. corporate tax rate is now the highest in the industrialized world. If the president fails to extend the 2003 tax rates for individual taxpayers, those rates become higher than countries considered socialist, such as Sweden and France. What specific things would you propose in Congress to keep taxes low for all Americans that would increase overall revenues and decrease the debt?
I think our common experience right now is with over-regulation in this country. The great story of America has always been the free enterprise system, and for some reason Washington has forgot that. We need entrepreneurs. We need to protect job creators, those of you who invest your money so that it can grow through the free enterprise system but thereby creating jobs. The big problem we have in this country right now is we don't have enough taxpayers. We need to have the maximum number of Americans paying the minimal amount of taxes. That will provide us productivity and the job creation we need in this country, not just for the revenue, but also for the fabric of this country, because we need Americans working, and we need them working as soon as possible.
Martha McSally.
How many of you in the audience have done your taxes so far this year? How many of them did it yourself? Yeah, our tax code is so complex, it is often impossible to try and do as an individual and as a corporation. We need to simplify the tax code, the corporate tax code and the individual tax code. We spend over 6.8 billion man-hours on our taxes every year, and if we turned that into jobs, it would be over 3 million jobs. So I very strongly support a platform where we simplify the tax code and we keep that number as low as possible so we have money in the pockets of individuals and in small businesses, which are the engine of growth, and they will then grow the economy, create jobs with the entrepreneurial spirit and their innovation that then, by the way, increases revenue that goes back to the government. Everyone should be paying taxes as well. So simplify the tax code, lower the rate, and everyone should be paying taxes, and we will be going in the right direction.
Thank you. Jesse Kelly.
Every single American should pay the exact same tax rate. As many of you have heard me say many times, I believe we should have a 10% flat tax in this nation. If 10% is good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for the federal government. They can find a way to make that number work. Obviously, we're not going to get there overnight. We're a long way from there. But that should be our goal. And the way to increase revenues in this nation is get more businesses, meaning slash that corporate tax rate, invite businesses from all over the world back home. We don't need to export businesses to China. People want to do business here because of our roads, because of our schools, because we are still the greatest country in the world. That's the beauty of it. We're not far away from getting our economy back on track. We just have to get the government out of the way, invite those businesses back home, and we will see prosper again.
Thank you. Our next question will be directed to Martha McSally. There was a lot of... Oh, I am very sorry, Frank.
That's okay, Bruce. No problem. Just want to make sure I get it in. All right, ready?
Please.
All right. I would support, as some of you may know, 2 weeks ago, the U.S. House voted on what's known as the Paul Ryan budget. You guys know who Paul Ryan is, right? All right. So that budget included some tax reforms in it where it established two tax brackets, a 10% tax bracket and a 25% tax bracket. That is an effort to start working towards a flat tax. The way you get rid of all the loopholes and all the carve-outs and all the special interests that the lobbyists in this country have carved out for their little clients is to go to that flat but broad-based tax where everybody pays the same based on a percentage of their income. And everybody becomes a shareholder in this country. So you're not dividing the country between the producers and the moochers that suck on the taxpayers of this country for their own personal benefit and want to stay there their entire life. So if you make everybody a shareholder and taxpayer, you get everybody with skin in the game, you change the dynamic of this country. You get everybody on board in the direction that this country needs to go. And that's productivity, jobs, less reliance on government, and more reliance on yourself and your individual families. That's the way you fix this problem.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to Martha McSally for our next question. There's a great deal of ballyhoo earlier when the unemployment benefits were extended. Would you support extending unemployment benefits again? And if so, how would you pay for it?
We have had the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression in America. And this is just dismal. And it's because the federal government keeps trying to stimulate the economy as opposed to getting out of the way and getting off the backs of small businesses so that small businesses, which are the engine of growth, could actually thrive and create those jobs and put Americans back to work. There's more people unemployed than are even in the statistics because many people have just given up and stopped looking for work. So we need to have a system that gets small businesses creating those jobs to put Americans back to work. That's where we should be focusing our efforts in Washington, D.C., not on continuing to extend benefits that are keeping people out of work. So focus on getting the federal government out of the way, get the regulatory regime out of the way so that the entrepreneurial spirit and small businesses can create those jobs and put Americans back to work.
Thank you. Jesse Kelly.
Well, the simple answer to your question is no. I would not support an extension of the unemployment benefits in any way. We cannot afford, with our debt right now, we can't afford to continue to pay people not to work. But the beauty of the American citizen is, I know it's not like this all over the world, but this is not some European nation where they take 2-hour lunch breaks. This is still America. Most Americans don't want an unemployment check. They want a job. And they're going to get a job soon. They really are. We are going to get this government out of the way. We're going to get tax rates down. We're going to get the EPA out of the way of our energy sector. We can do all of these things if we win elections. So, no, we cannot extend unemployment benefits, but like I said, all we need is jobs, and we can get them because we're still America.
Thank you. Senator Antonori.
You guys know the one state in the country that did not extend unemployment benefits to 99 weeks? Arizona. Do you know why? Because we stopped it. We said that 78 weeks is already long enough in Arizona. We're the only state that stopped unemployment benefits at 78 weeks. The rest of the country went out to 2 years. The statistics show that most people on unemployment seem to find a job 2 weeks before their unemployment benefits run out or 2 weeks after their unemployment benefits. It's a unique phenomenon. So extending the unemployment benefits just extends the period that most people stay on unemployment. It's subsidizing unemployment. It's a mistake. Unlike Nancy Pelosi and our future opponent, Mr. Barber, who supports her policies, we don't think you create jobs by putting people on unemployment. You create jobs by encouraging people to work. And the way you encourage people to work is you encourage small business people to invest in their company and grow their business so they hire more people and create jobs. And you don't do that by jacking the taxes up so you can extend unemployment an additional 20 weeks. Put an end to it.
Many of you might recall there was a president named John Kennedy, to give you an idea how far we've slipped, who made a very compelling point in 1962 that M1 was never to fall into the hands of the government. And here we are today. The government now controls the economy. That's exactly what common sense told us 4 decades ago should not happen. We need to get money back into the free enterprise system as quickly as possible to create those jobs. So there will be fewer and fewer till there's a point where there's no unemployment benefits paid by the government, as you've heard tonight. It's absolutely accurate. Since we have begun extending these benefits, we continue to extend them more and more. It's time to rein in the money supply back into the hands of the free enterprise system, create the jobs, and end unemployment benefits.
Our next question is about green tax credits and green jobs. Jesse Kelly, we'll start out with you. Do you support continuing green tax credits authorized by Congress? And if so, explain specifically how you would propose paying for them within the budget.
By green jobs, do you mean working at John Deere? Or? Because if you don't mean working at John Deere, the answer is no. The answer is absolutely not. We cannot subsidize any industry. The government does not pick winners and losers. The American people do. We decide with our dollar what businesses succeed, what forms of energy succeed, what types of cars succeed. We make those decisions with our dollar. That's the way the free markets work. That's the way this nation works. And you cannot punish one industry and subsidize another. And when I hear things like the solar industry and all these other alternate fuels and renewable energies are completely subsidized with our money, and the oil companies who are so demonized pay more money to the federal government than they themselves make in profit, that tells me we are completely upside down with our values, and that's why we need to get the Sierra Club out of our government and get some common sense back there, and it's coming soon.
Senator Antonori.
The answer is no. It's that simple. You got to have an incentive out there for people to generate wealth. You do that by allowing them to use the free market to their benefit. Good ideas generate revenue. They propagate. They get bigger and bigger. Bad ideas fail. You've got to let people fail. Failure is a part of success. When you get knocked down and you get battered, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you try to do it a different way. That's the entrepreneurial spirit in this country. You know how many businesses have started and failed till they find the right formula? When the government sticks its nose in there, it screws up the system. That's why we had these companies that are, quote, too big to fail. We should have let them fail. The government doesn't pick winners and losers. You don't subsidize failure. You don't subsidize inefficiency, and that's what these tax credits do. They subsidize inefficiency and failure. You do away with them, let the free market rule, and you'll watch how those alternative energies find a way to succeed.
Thank you. Dave Sitton.
I was recently over at the Vail Academy, and I was listening to some young people in that school. We had this discussion, and we eventually got to the point we asked, what did the government do for Steve Jobs? How many of you have an iPod? Every hand shot up. Did the government need to subsidize iPods? No, because Mr. Jobs identified a need. Now, young men and ladies, we talked in that classroom, what if we could come up with an alternate energy? Do you think there's a demand for that worldwide? Why, absolutely. Well, let's invest in it. And the kids said, I would invest in that. It's a free enterprise opportunity if there ever has been one. There is a worldwide need, a worldwide demand, and an incredible domestic demand for energy. I think people want to invest in that if there's not too much government regulation. The answer is no, do not subsidize energy exploration, energy programs in the green energy system.
The answer is absolutely not. We have got to have a free market economy that encourages innovation, it encourages competition, it encourages coming up with new ideas in order to bring prices down so that those technologies maybe will be available someday and not be cost prohibitive. As long as they're cost prohibitive, then they're just taking our hard-earned money, we pay it on our taxes, it goes to the government, and then it's going back, which is not now any sort of incentive to innovate. So we have got to keep the subsidies out and let the free market and the private economy and the entrepreneurial spirit try and continue to develop those technologies as we've done in so many other things in the past. And maybe someday it won't be cost prohibitive, and maybe someday they'll be able to be used without any government subsidies, but not right now.
Candidates, you've been doing such a great job. We're going to be able to get a bonus question in here about the economy. And we're going back to jobs. Unemployment, creating good American jobs, is one of America's greatest challenges today. Unemployment rates for 18 to 24-year-olds and for blacks and Latino kids are at least twice the overall unemployment rate. What hope would your election to Congress mean for the creation of good Arizona jobs for young adults here in the district in southern Arizona?
We in southern Arizona have the potential to generate an economy down here if we get the anti-growth lobby out of the way. There are people that just don't want progress here. They come up with every single excuse you can think of to stop it. You've got to get somebody up there that finds that balance from protecting the environment, creating jobs and everything, and you got to do it in a common sense way. We did that here in Arizona last year, the Arizona Job Competitiveness Package. We encourage base industries, manufacturing, mining, agriculture, tourism. That's what we've got to get going in Arizona. We've also got to expand the trades. You know, a good friend of mine has a son that went and got an automotive technician certification. He started out making $40,000 a year after 1 year of automotive technician school. Didn't go to college, and he's generating wealth for his family. You've got to get into the mindset that skilled trades, skilled labor, and not just college is the way to go. We have to encourage kids to look at every opportunity, and to get those skilled jobs here, you have to have manufacturing. And that's what we have to encourage. And you do that by lowering the taxes and incentivizing research and development by taking away the taxes on R&D. That's how you do it.
Thank you. Dave Sitton.
In southern Arizona, we've got great opportunities. We know that. There's some bustling new ones like biotech, you've heard that, and also geotourism. We need to exploit each and every one of them. And the way to offer hope right now is a better education system. No more Washington, D.C. If in Washington, D.C., I would discourage keeping the Department of Education around for another day. We need parents locally to be empowered to get involved with educators so that families now make the decisions about education. That is where the real hope comes for young people, to get a good education and get a good job. And the one thing we do know about jobs, they're much more than just simply a paycheck every 2 weeks. They're about the fabric of communities, because people with good jobs become better citizens. They're the ones that volunteer. They're the ones that become more involved with their communities and make for a greater tapestry of the American spirit. We need good jobs.
Thank you. Martha McSally.
The unemployment rate for our minorities and specifically our Hispanic community is absolutely dismal, and also for our young people. The road out of that is good education. My mom was an educator, and she served until she was 77 as an educator, and we cannot have the federal government directing what education is going to be. It needs to be parent-driven. It needs to be locally owned. It needs to have competition and rewards for excellence, and that's going to be the road out of having good opportunities for these important parts of our community. So the federal government needs to get out of the way. I am going to be fighting for the federal government to be doing that and creating the opportunity for growth and small business growth in Southern Arizona. We also got to realize we got to elect the right people at the state and the county and the local level, because jobs are going to come here if there's good education, if the tax rate is not too high at the local level as well. So we got to work together across the board, from the local up to the federal, to make sure we've got those good jobs coming to Southern Arizona and to all parts of our community.
Thank you. Jesse Kelly.
Well, in the same way that wealth trickles down, so does poverty. And what we have now, I have a former executive I know at a housing company that you would all know delivered me a pizza from Domino's not too far back. The reason we have 50% unemployment amongst our young people in this nation is because people right now are forced to take jobs that they are overqualified for. This was a gentleman clearly overqualified to be delivering me a pepperoni lover's pizza. The problem is we have an administration and a government that is openly hostile to business. For the first time in history, our president is campaigning on raising taxes on small businesses. We must slash taxes on small businesses. When we do so, they'll stop saying things to me like they're already saying. I have small business owners telling me, I don't want to become a big business. I don't want to grow. Why would I? That creates more headaches. That is not the United States of America. The goal of small business is to become a big business and a bigger business, and then they expand and hire more people. That will create jobs, then people can move up instead of down in our marketplace.
All right, that's going to be the end of the first segment. Got a lot of information, a lot of great questions there. We're going to continue in just 3 minutes with questions on energy, oil, gasoline, you name it, border security, national security. So don't go anywhere. This is the final CD8 debate live on KNST AM 790 and now 97.1 FM.
Rush Limbaugh, weekday mornings 9 to noon. Now, the CD8 debate continues live on KNST AM 790 and now 97.1 FM.
All right. Garrett Lewis still here at the CD8 debate. A lot of questions, a lot of information to get, a lot of answers to get from the 4 candidates that are up here. So let's continue with the round of questions right now. Here is the moderator, Bruce Ash.
Thank you very much, Garrett. Candidates, we're on to a whole new series of questions about energy, national security, and immigration. We're going to start with Mr. Sitton in this round. Dave, how do you plan to deal with the hundreds of thousands of illegals living in Arizona, and describe your solution to the national security and the public safety problems created by the federal government, who has been unable or unwilling to enforce the law?
Yeah, unfortunately, since President Reagan's last attempt at this, we've had 4 administrations that have done nothing to secure our border. There are 2 issues here, ladies and gentlemen. One is immigration. The other is border security. Border security comes first. Border security is more than just an immigration issue as well. Border security, as you well know, is about the security of our nation. We all know what's coming across that border now, not only narcotics, but also in the way of weapons and other contraband. So we have to fix that first. When that is secure, then we can have a discussion in this country about what to do those who are here illegally. And there are several options and opportunities available for Congress to discover and to consider. Amongst those, first of all, is no amnesty for breaking into this country illegally. Second, then, is to find out what would be the disposition of, thank you, the disposition of a new classification for those people who have been in this country and have not committed any crimes, and what we might do with them. And finally, making sure that anybody who has committed a crime is incarcerated or deported immediately.
Martha McSally.
We have got to secure our border. This is a national security threat. We have transnational criminal organizations trafficking weapons, slaves, drugs, and money into our neighborhoods here in Southern Arizona, and the federal government has failed. We know how to do this. We need a combination of barriers and fences where appropriate, manpower at the border, which is the front line in this war. We need to use technologies that we have. We need to use air air support in order to do that. We know how to identify, track, monitor, and intercept. We're just not doing it, and the federal government is failing. In addition to that, we need to make sure that we are enforcing the laws that we have on the books. If you can't get a job and you can't get benefits, there's no incentive to be here. So we've got to secure the border, we've got to enforce the laws on the books, and we do need to look at streamlining our legal immigration process so it is not so painful and that will continue to disincentivize others from coming across illegally. First, address the national security threat.
Thank you. Jesse Kelly.
A great step would be to take back the presidency in November so we have somebody in the White House who would... Thank you. That one always gets a cheap applause. But in all honesty, we need someone there who will not sue the state of Arizona when we are enforcing our laws and passing great laws. That's what we need in this country. We don't need new laws. We don't need any new laws in this nation. We have great sheriffs here in this state. We can enforce the laws on the books. As far as the people that are here, it costs $3 billion a year to educate, incarcerate, and hospitalize illegal immigrants. We can take care of this problem with things like the I-9 system and E-Verify. I hire people all the time, and every one of them go through the I-9 system. If the government will enforce that system, as they have in the past, the last time they seriously dug into that system, there were literally groups of people heading the other way. If we do that, if we stop the jobs, no illegal immigration policy, and then we can focus on getting those cartels after we build our double-layer border fence. Thank you.
Senator Antonori.
Well, the first thing you got to do is secure the border. There's no doubt. The American people will not trust the government on any kind of immigration reform after what happened in 1986. They were promised that the law would be enforced, and the government broke that promise. You have to restore the faith, and the way you do that is you secure the border by every means possible. You got boots on the ground, sensors, technology, whatever it takes. I endorse the Cattlemen's 18-point plan known as the Rob Plan, named after slain rancher Rob Prince. That plan is a comprehensive plan to secure the border. The next thing I would do is enforce the law, like we did here in Arizona. That's why I voted for SB 1070. All that does is enforce federal immigration law. Could you imagine? Imagine this for a minute. When I get to the Washington, D.C. and stand on the floor and look all those guys in the eye and tell them, look who sent me up here to tell you I voted for SB 1070. Let's fix this immigration system. Let's enforce the law. No amnesty, no path to citizenship that broke for people that broke into this country. You come through the front door, you sign the guest list. You don't sneak in the back door and raid our refrigerator.
Continuing in this vein, would you support a constitutional amendment to repeal the 14th Amendment, which gives anybody born in this country automatic citizenship to the United States of America? Martha McSally.
Look, we need to focus on securing our border first. My priority when I go to Washington, D.C. is to get our debt under control, to get the economy going again, and to deal with the national security threats that are affecting our nation, which includes securing the border. So those are going to be my priorities. We have got to take this seriously because it is a national security threat. You know, the foundation of the 14th Amendment was never intended to be what it is today, as you all know. And so it's embarrassing that we have, do you know we have hospitals in Tucson that are advertising in rich neighborhoods in Mexico for them to come have their babies here so that they can actually become citizens? I mean, this is just absolutely ridiculous. So we need to make sure that we are addressing this issue by enforcing the border security, by addressing this at the strategic level, while we're also trying to get Americans back to work and enforcing the laws on the books.
Jesse Kelly.
The answer to your question is no. I do not believe we need to repeal the 14th Amendment because I do not believe the 14th Amendment grants citizenship to somebody who illegally enters this nation and has a child here. That amendment was put into place after the Civil War to right some serious wrongs we had done in this nation. It was never intended to do what it's doing now. We need to pass simply a clarification piece of legislation through the House of Representatives, and Lord willing, Harry Reid's no longer in the Senate, so we can get somebody there who will sign it. And once that is done, once we can clarify that the 14th Amendment does not grant citizenship in that way, this problem is officially taken care of.
Senator Antonori.
Yeah, there's a lot more to the 14th Amendment than just the immigration piece. And the 14th Amendment clearly states that the Congress shall determine the criteria for both immigration and citizenship. So it shall be the Congress that simply can pass a simple law and say the only way you become a U.S. citizen in the United States is if one or both of your parents are U.S. citizens. Most other countries already have that. We're one of the few that has birthright citizenship. And you can also establish clear criteria for people that can come here legally. And you can do that with a simple act of Congress. We can do that. You do not need to go jerking around with the 14th Amendment. The Congress has that power. Just simply get people up there that have the guts to put a bill like that out on the floor and vote for it. And I will do that.
Thank you. Dave Sitton.
I concur. Can you imagine the demagoguery if we tried to change or repeal the 14th Amendment in this country? That's too painful, and it's totally unnecessary. I agree. A congressional bill that would clarify who gets to be citizen of the United States, one or both of you, the parents being legally in the United States, would fix this issue and do so quickly.
Continuing along in the border security area, do you support the expanded use of unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, to be law enforcement against domestic targets?
Absolutely. As long as it's the proper law enforcement agency. Currently what we have on our border is not just a cartel problem. We have Hezbollah being funded and organized by not only Iran but by Venezuela. Hezbollah is recruiting right beside us here in order to try to get radical Islam, get control of these routes in the United States, and have them enter our nation. And in the same way we fight terrorism and will always fight terrorism abroad, we will fight terrorism like that here at home. We can bring our drones back from Afghanistan and use them to fight terrorists right here that are attempting to enter our nation.
Thank you. Senator Antonori.
Look, drones are really expensive. General Atomics builds the Predator. Those things range from anywhere from $100 million to $1 billion each. You don't need that. You can get a simple fixed-wing aircraft. You can put a forward-looking infrared FLIR ball on there, put a pilot in it, or you could do like they have at Fort Huachuca. You can put a blimp up in the air that's really cheap with a camera that can see 50 miles into Mexico and 50 to 100 miles in each direction that can keep eyes on that border. You don't need to spend billions of dollars. There's a technical imperative problem that this country has. Sometimes keeping it simple, stupid, is the way you solve the problem. You don't have to spend billions of tax dollars to secure this border. You can find cheap, cost-effective ways. You put the technology and the type of technology out there that you need, you put the boots on the ground, and when somebody crosses that border, you scarf them up, you put them in jail, and you deport them. That solves your problem.
Thank you. Dave Sitton.
I'm running to be your representative in Washington, D.C. So over the past 6 weeks, I've sought the wisdom of those who live at the border. And this is what they have told me. This is what they've shown me. This is what I would take to Washington, D.C., because they know more than anybody in Washington. That is the fact that the border requires several simple steps. One, in the urban areas, they want the double fence. It works. There are certain other areas across those great ranch lands where they prefer to have the pipe and rail system or the Normandy fence system so that animals can cross back and forth freely and the water can flow as well. Then there are other areas that are so far frontier, there is not going to be a fence or of any kind be built there. What they've all told me, the wisdom from there is fixed-wing aircraft to monitor the fence. Unless the fence is monitored constantly, there is no point in having it because every man-made fortification has been breached in the history of this planet. It happens there now, and they know best. I would take that to Washington, D.C.
Thank you. Martha McSally.
Well, I've had the privilege to spend a lot of time with these ranchers down on the border, and I'm absolutely blessed that men like John Ladd and Danny Smith are now endorsing me after we've had long discussions about these types of things. You know, I've planned air operations like this before in Iraq and Afghanistan. We have a combination of manpower on the ground, plus fixed wing, rotary wing, plus drones. I've actually worked with drones personally, commanding my squadron in Afghanistan, and they do have some benefit of monitoring for long periods of time, but it's like they're like looking through a soda straw. They can't find anything, but they can monitor it. The Predator B is way too expensive for being used on our border here, so I do support a combination of, again, manpower, barriers, fences, technologies, plus rotary and fixed aircraft with people in them. And if you have some lower cost unmanned aerial vehicles that can help with tracking, then that should be a part of the solution tactically. But the higher level ones that we're using in combat right now is just absolute overkill. So we got to combine those all together, but the Predator is just a little bit too much for that mission.
Thank you. We're going to change the topic just a little. We're going to go to energy. The President claims to have limited powers to control the escalating cost of energy and gasoline prices. The President's Secretary of Energy has testified before Congress he believes gasoline prices ought to be higher. Congress has done little over many years to develop a comprehensive energy policy. Name the two most important energy proposals you would propose to the U.S. Congress, not only to reduce the cost of energy, but to ensure a low-cost source of energy without having to rely on unreliable countries. I believe, Mr. Antonori, it is your turn.
Number one, I would expand the use of nuclear power. There's no reason that in a country like this that's clean energy and plentiful energy, we shouldn't be, anything that moves should be running on petroleum. Anything that doesn't move shouldn't be running on petroleum. Why are we heating homes and firing our electrical generation plants with oil when we could do it with coal and nuclear power? That's the first thing you do. Second thing you do is you get government out of the way of allowing the exploration for oil. You incentivize them. You issue leases. You generate money. Well, you know, in Arizona, when the Forest Service used to issue timber leases, it used to actually make money for the federal government. The Forest Service didn't need a dime of your tax dollars to run the entire Department of the Interior. It paid for itself because we issued leases. This president has stopped that. It is costing you billions now because all those employees now have to use your tax dollars to pay themselves. Issue the leases, let the Forest Service and the Department of the Interior fund itself, encourage oil exploration, increase domestic production. That will drop the price of oil and make it cheaper.
Dave said.
Looking at the room tonight, I'm making the guess that most of you can remember what it was like when we took on the Soviet Union, and particularly in the space race. And I remember very with clarity thinking that could we ever put a man on the moon? We did that and have gone on. We're now talking about Mars. Are you telling me that we don't have the technology to make a mix of energy solutions for this country if our engineers, if our researchers were allowed to go forward with those? Yes, nuclear is in the mix. So is clean coal. So is petroleum. All of these energy products are available to us. That includes the energy technologies of the future as well. From everybody I've talked to who's in the business says that solar is about 10 years out. Let's continue going across the board. This president says that he wants higher gas prices and wants to lower costs for food, groceries, and clothing in this country. Only this guy could come up with something like that. I want to know, Mr. President, what comes to the White House that's not delivered by a truck with diesel, natural gas, or gasoline in its in its engine? Thank you.
Martha McSally.
Well, I know we got a lot of veterans in the crowd, and if there's one thing you learn in the military is if you don't have a strategy and a plan, you don't know where you're going. So we have to have a strategy. That strategy needs to include diversification. We need to be able to drill oil where it's available and stop blocking that because we're going to be on fossil fuels for a long time. So we need to be using the assets that we have in America. We need to build the Keystone Pipeline so that we tighten our relationship with a great ally just to the north of us that continues us towards energy independence. We need to regenerate our nuclear capability, which is going to be running out about 2025, so that needs to be a part of the mix. We also need to realize that we're in a global energy market, and part of the reason prices go up is instability in places like Iran. So we would stop dealing with Iran from weakness and actually deal with it from strength. We've wasted 3 years, and we need to make sure we have a smart understanding in foreign policy and engagement in order to keep those prices down, in addition to a strategy that's diversified.
Thank you. Jesse Kelly.
Well, let's speak very briefly about what our president has done with his limited powers. He blocked oil drilling in the Gulf and then sent $3 billion of your money to Brazil so they could drill for oil. And then with 14% real unemployment in this nation and gas at over $4 a gallon in 10 states, he blocked a pipeline that would have lowered the cost of fuel and created 20,000 jobs in the United States of America. That's what he's done with his limited powers. We need new coal plants. Currently, the EPA is blocking any new coal plants. Coal is currently 45% of our energy grid. It is abundant. We have all we need. And when it comes to oil, we have significantly more oil in this country than Saudi Arabia. Drill here, drill now, and pay less.
Candidates, our presidential candidates have talked about where they think gas prices should be. From each of you, and we'll start with Senator Antonori and move across, give us your goal as to where gas prices should be. Senator Antonori.
$1.50 to $2.
Dave Sitton.
When I was a kid, I remember hearing something about the law of supply and demand. When we get the government out of the way, I think government will, the supply increases. The demand's not going to go anytime soon. I think that lowers our prices somewhere, if you index against what our prices were throughout the 60s and 70s, somewhere between $1 and $2.
Martha McSally.
I sure liked when we paid less than $1, but that was when I was a kid. But driving that Chevette that we talked about at one of the other debates. We need to take this seriously, obviously, to make sure that gas is affordable for everybody. And doing the things we talked about on the last question will do that. And ideally, I'd like to be paying somewhere between $1 and $2 myself.
Jesse Kelly.
Well, I certainly can't go higher than the other candidates on the stage. 50 cents, but as low as we can possibly get it. The point is we have an abundant supply. Now, it'll fluctuate with demand, and then they'll stop producing oil at some point in time, but as low as we can get it. But just remember, everyone, Jesse Kelly said the lowest number on this stage.
Yeah, but I set the bar.
And I want you to become a retailer as soon as possible.
All right. Our bonus question in this round is on foreign policy. The Obama foreign policy team appears to be using Israel as its surrogate to destroy Iran's nuclear capability. What advice should the GOP Congress give to the president to protect American interests in the region, short of committing force to protect America and our allies from hostile nuclear-equipped Iran, and to prevent the consequence of a nuclear confrontation? Mr. Sitt.
Which president? Because this president's not going to listen to anybody with a tusk in front of them. I guarantee you that. But if we had rational discourse in Washington, D.C. right now, we'd be talking about our great ally Israel and what we could be doing behind the scenes in the region. We have to understand who Iran is. We have to understand the ancient nature of the relationship between the Iranians, the Persians, and the rest of the Arab world. We have to understand that not everybody in the Arab world is very happy about a nuclear-equipped Iran. I think we need to do everything we can in that region to encourage the Arab leadership in the neighborhood that is still stable, that hasn't gone through their amazing Arab summer, and can be spoken to so that they can start putting their influence in the area as well. And if necessary, if Israel finds it necessary in its own defense to attack Iran, the United States must stand forward with Israel the entire time and get everybody in that neighborhood they possibly can on board, whether it's overt or not.
Martha McSally.
We cannot tolerate a nuclear state sponsor of terror. This is not just a threat to Israel, everybody. This is a threat to the free world, and America is the leader of the free world. So we need to stop talking about this like we're sitting back as spectators and hoping Israel, does something or doesn't do something. A nuclear Iran is not in the interest of the free world. This is a threat to us. They are sponsoring terrorism through proxy wars, through Hezbollah, which are present not yet in Mexico, but also in Bolivia and El Salvador and Venezuela and other places. So this is serious business. We need to take the lead. We need to use all elements of national power as a leader of the free world in order to turn this thing around. Diplomatic, economic, and visible military planning as a deterrent with our allies. This is not just about Israel. We need to be lockstep with them and in leadership in order to get this threat out of the way.
Thank you. Jesse Kelly.
We should do anything and everything we have to help stand beside and stand with our best friend in this world, and that's Israel. The great news is Israel can take care of their own affairs. They are very, very tough. Our most important support we can give them, on top of intelligence, on top of anything else they need, is simply verbal support. We need a president to stand up in front of the world at a podium and for once not apologize for this nation, but stand at a podium and say, America stands with Israel, and the rest of you leave them be. And Israel will take care of their affairs. They're able to do that. And to bring this clear back to energy for a quick second, it does tell you how important it is that we start embracing American energy and American oil. Do we want gas prices in the future to go up and down based on what countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia do, or do we want to go up to Alaska for our oil?
Thank you. Senator Ananoy.
You know, just like the United States, Israel's a sovereign country. Sovereign countries have an inherent right to defend and protect themselves from any threat, foreign and domestic, just like we do here. If the Israelis feel threatened by Iran and they feel it necessary to strike Iran, they have a right to do that. We have a right to support them as our ally in the region, and we must support our allies because we've been supporting our enemies over the past couple of years. We got a president that hugs Hugo Chavez and then basically takes the president of Israel and tries to give him a little history lesson, and then got taught a history lesson of the South. I guess they didn't teach history at Harvard because he really blew that. Netanyahu schooled him. He got him all up to speed. You know, and then what I would do is I would send, if I were president, I'd send Ahmadinejad the movie 300, and with a nice little card said, hey, remember Thermopylae, because they got their butts kicked there, and they'll get their butts kicked again.
It's probably not a coincidence that the White House invited the Muslim Brotherhood from Egypt to the White House last week, and a Grad missile slammed into Eilat within 24 hours. Our double bonus question, because you guys are awesome. President Obama has used U.S. military assets without the consent of Congress during his term of office. Do you believe Congress has ceded too much of its powers to the commander-in-chief? And when you become a member of Congress, what would you do as CD8's representative to preserve the power of the legislative branch and the checks and balances which the U.S. Constitution calls for? And I believe it is Ms. McSally.
Thanks. The executive branch does have some very limited powers by the War Powers Act in order to act quickly when national security interests are at stake. And those powers need to be limited. The way Congress needs to be involved in that is by holding them accountable and by not funding anything that's more than just a very limited attack that's within immediacy and national security interests of America. So Congress has the power. They just need to execute it and show some moral courage that you don't continue to fund things that you believe were in the power of the executive branch to fund. We have not declared war in a very long time, yet we've been fighting several of them. So we need Congress back in the game of their constitutional responsibility, and they do that through funding, through cutting off the money. And the War Powers Act are very limited and needs to stay limited, but Congress has got the power of the purse.
Jesse Kelly.
There is a reason the founders of this nation gave Congress the black and white authority to declare war and not the President of the United States. And that reason is because your representative works for you and he's your representative. The people in this room that have family members in combat or have been to combat should not have to write an email to the White House that they know will never get read. They should be able to drive up the street to their congressional representative and ask him or her to their face to justify a declaration of war. That's what the founders intended. Congress has that power. The president does not. We need to get back to, once again, to the Constitution of the United States of America. It was our founding document. It's one of the greatest things ever written, and it is the path back to prosperity in this country.
Thank you. Senator Ananoy.
Yeah, the reason that was put in the Constitution is clear. When you commit American blood and treasure, you better have a little bit of a national discussion on it and make sure everybody gets an opportunity to weigh in on that. And that's why Congress has the authority to declare war. We've negated that through the War Powers Act, and we've been continuing to fund these conflicts. And sort of just Congress, ever since the old Gulf of Tonkin resolution, not having the real guts to declare war. We were attacked on 9/11. We know who our enemies were. We know where they came from. We know who was harboring them. I don't see why, after that, the people of this country wouldn't have supported the President of the United States going to Congress and saying, Congress, we were attacked by a foreign enemy that wants to destroy our country and our way of life as we know it. I want to go to war. and the Congress should have had a vote. And when we committed, and I, as one of those guys that set foot on that dirt and lost a lot of buddies over there, I would have been much better off and felt better if I knew my buddies were over there fighting because everybody in this country wanted them to be there, and we were going to go there and we were going to win it, not just go there to play games. We go to war, we go to fight, and we go to win.
Thank you. And finally to Mr. Sitton.
On the subject of the United States Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, the United States President is not responsible for the economy. He's not responsible for our energy program. The number one thing he does, he is or she is the Commander-in-Chief of the United States military. General Washington, when he resigned his commission as the Continental Army commander, said it would be a civilian who would be placed in the Oval Office, and a civilian was going to need to be responsible for the United States military with the oversight of the Congress, just as you've heard here before, as prescribed by our Constitution. It was done so for a reason, a very good reason. We do not have a king. We are not subjects. The President of the United States must understand his or her responsibility with the United States military and never, ever commit it unless it is for a specific goal and has the intent to win immediately.
Okay, we're going to take our second break, but you don't want to go anywhere because we're going to come back in just 3 short minutes with questions on health care, the budget, entitlements, and taxes. This is the CDA debate live on KNST AM 790 and 97.1 FM.
Sean Hannity, weekdays noon to 3. Now, the CD8 debate continues live on KNST AM 790 and now 97.1 FM.
Okay. The final segment of the CD8 debate, the final debate, heard exclusively on KNST AM 790 and now on 97.1 FM. Let's continue with the last round of questions. Here is the moderator, Bruce Ash.
Thank you, Garrett. Welcome back, candidates, and welcome back, crowd. We're now going to talk about Obamacare, the budget, entitlement, and a little bit on taxes. And I think this question goes to Mr. Sitton, who kind of got taken out of order the last time. I apologize.
Accepted.
Okay. If the individual mandate to Obamacare is ruled unconstitutional, should Congress start from scratch to propose an alternative, or are there sections of Obamacare that make sense to continue?
Again, I've gone to the wisdom of our district. I have not met a physician yet who likes Obamacare. The reason is because one of the things it does, we know already, we were told it was going to lower the cost of health care. One gone. Second thing, we were also told that it would help us with our relationship with our physicians. That's absolutely wrong. Quite frankly, the opposite is true. And the further we get into this disgrace, we find that the important relationship between physicians and their patients will be disturbed. So to answer your question, I see this as one of the great opportunities for the Republicans, common sense people, and conservatives in this country. Let's seize the opportunity right now. Write a better program than Obamacare that uses free enterprise principles, encourages our young people to become doctors and researchers, and continue with the greatest health care system ever devised in the history of mankind.
Thank you, Martha McSally.
We need to repeal Obamacare, period. We then need to also talk about what we're for and not just what we're against as good conservatives. We pay more than any other nation in the world for health care, 50% more than the next nation, yet our life expectancy is number 27 in the world. So we need to bring the cost of health care down and make it affordable and available for everyone. How do we do that? Well, things like tort reform, so that we have caps on malpractice, so doctors are not, having to pay those exorbitant fees and then order unnecessary tests for you just to cover their backs. We need to be able to buy insurance across state lines to make it competitive and let the free market economy flourish. And we need to stop this fee-for-service thing where a doctor only gets paid for something that they do to you as opposed to actually making us healthy by incentivizing preventive care. So we need to do some things to bring that cost down to make us healthier and make health care affordable and available. And the federal government, by the way, way. I shouldn't be involved in a lot of this. Some of this is state issues. Some of this are local issues. The federal government can't fix this. I'm a conservative, and we need to address bringing those costs down to make it affordable and available for everyone.
Thank you. Jesse Kelly.
Well, what Obamacare did was put a mandate on the individual. It put brand new taxes on businesses, and it cut $500 billion out of Medicare for our seniors. So it was literally bad for every single American walking this earth. The whole thing can go away. I believe its official name was the Affordable Health Care Act, so maybe we could keep the name. But beyond that, the whole thing can go away. We need to purchase insurance across state lines. Businesses need to be allowed to pool together. And the same reason that states are allowed to pool together to purchase insurance, businesses are not, and if they're allowed to do, the cost of insurance will go down. But my biggest thing is the individual ownership of health insurance. Individuals should be given the same tax incentives that employers are to purchase insurance. You should be able to go home from here after you vote Jesse Kelly and get on your computer and purchase an individual insurance plan tailored for you, not one with government regulations that force you to be covered under things you don't want. It should be your personal plan, which will give you all the freedom you want. In short, less government, more freedom.
Thank you. Senator Ananori.
You know, being a state senator, I know the impact that that's going to have on Arizona's budget. It's going to bankrupt this state. It's going to hit us for $450 million, and then it's going to go up to $700, and then $1 billion a year. It's going to cost the state of Arizona. That's why I voted to refer to the ballot your right to opt out of Obamacare, which you approved. And the state of Arizona now it says the health care freedom of our citizens will not be infringed. I voted to give the governor the authority to sue, and we're one of 19 states that took that lawsuit to the Supreme Court. And we're going to fight this guy. It is a states' rights issue. Nowhere in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution does it give the federal government the authority to make decisions about your health care. It is not. And the 10th Amendment is clear. If it isn't in that Article 1, Section 8, if it ain't in the Constitution, it is reserved to the states and to the people. There is no business for the health care business to be at Washington. It should be here in our local communities and with us. So I would oppose any health care mandates, return it to the state, and let the free market set the system up. That's where the success is.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sitton. Mr. Sitton? Oh,
I started, yeah.
Okay, my
Go
mistake.
again? I can talk about a
No,
10-point plan.
No, Bruce goofed up again. The next question is from Martha McSally. Today, 65% of the federal government is comprised of payments to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, VA, SCHIP, and debt service on the debt. In the next 3 years, these costs will go up to over 70% of the total budget. No one, not even Paul Ryan's Path to Prosperity, provides a balanced budget for many years to come. In the view of these staggering facts, how do you propose to reduce the deficit?
Our debt, as I mentioned, is the single biggest threat to our nation right now, to national security and to American prosperity. These are complex issues. We need to look at every taxpayer's dollar that we're spending, and we need to bring that down in order to get this debt under control. We did not get in this situation overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight, unfortunately. If we do nothing, then we are going to be on the path to where Greece is right now. So we need to protect a few things. We need to protect veterans and protect our military, because the federal government is responsible for defending our nation, and we must, as a covenant to our veterans, take care of those who have put their lives on the line and served. As we look at options to protect and secure Social Security and Medicare for the future, we need to protect the promises we have made to seniors that are at or near retirement, and we need to be innovative about ways to sustain those programs for the future, because otherwise they will go bankrupt and they will Pac-Man out the rest of the budget. So how do we do that? Do some innovation, and ideas are on the table which are worth looking at for people to keep some money in their pockets when it comes to Social Security. And I need to stop now. So we got to get this debt under control. It's very complex, and I'm going to Washington to fix it.
Thank you. Jesse Kelly.
Well, we have to be clear. We have to protect the benefits that seniors have earned while giving future generations choices. That's what we're about in this country. We're about choices. So protect seniors who have earned these benefits, choices for future generations. We will need more revenue to the federal government, and we cannot raise taxes to do that because our tax system is already too high. What we can do, not to change the subject, is energy. We are literally sitting on top of a mountain of money in all forms: uranium, oil, coal, natural gas. We have everything we need, not only to be energy independent, not just to lower your power bill and lower gas prices, which we can do. We can be the biggest exporter of energy in the world, and they don't call it black gold for nothing. It actually can pay off the deficit. It can pay off the debt of this country. It is the way future, and it is the way into the future. Energy is the way we have to go in order to fulfill our obligations.
Thank you. Senator Antonori.
You've got to keep the promise that was made to all the people that have paid in the system. I've been paying into Social Security since I was 16 years old when I first started working. I right now do not believe it will be there when I retire, because it has been raided by Congress for justifications for them to spend the money that was put in the system on all their crazy spending programs. That's got to stop. You've got to protect it and set up a system like most people believe it should be. Right now, Social Security is not a trust fund. That money goes into the general fund and Congress spends it. If you want to set it up, you segregate it, and you create a special fund to make sure we keep our promise to our seniors. And then I have an idea. I think that when I talk about expanding those oil leases and mineral rights and timber rights and start generating that revenue, when you issue those leases, you take a portion of that lease, not increase the price of it, just take a portion of those new leases, and you take that revenue and you put it in and protect Social Security. Guess what that does? Whenever a president ever thinks about cutting back on oil exploration and the amount of oil production and everything else, the people of this country will go bonkers and stop him from doing that. You protect domestic oil production and you protect Social Security.
David Siddons.
The question is how to protect and take a look at our budget. I might suggest we finally do an audit of this country. I'm going to say something right now that I know is in your heart as you watch the federal government spend money. How about these three words? Fraud, abuse, and waste. Just last week, several members of the administration went out to Las Vegas to find a hotel. Could have done that online, don't you think? Ladies and gentlemen, this has been going on for years. We don't have an idea how much we're spending. We talk about spending money on entitlements or any other programs in this country. We don't have a handle. The Office of Management and Budget puts out a program I have never seen in any of their reports once: fraud, abuse, and waste. And you know what's there. This is how we got into trillions of dollars of debt. I would start there. We start, first of all, taking a look at what it is necessary to spend money on, absolutely necessary, and prescribed by the Constitution of the United States. We fund those first. And then we go on from that point. But we have to audit what it is we're spending in this country right now. I've asked people in the federal government so many times, they don't know either.
Thank you. Our next question is a hypothetical. This goes to Jesse Kelly. You're in a grocery store, and you see a person buying food with an EBT card. This is the new food stamp. And then you see them pay cash for alcohol and cigarettes. What do you say to them? And how would you, as a representative in Congress, address the situation?
I'd make sure that more Republicans got elected in this country.
Thank you. Frank Antonori.
Well, some of you may remember I actually introduced a bill in the Arizona legislature to deal with this very problem. I think it's wrong. I had a lady one time sent me a receipt that showed things that you can't buy cigarettes with an EBT card. But you should be surprised at some of the things you can. Did you know you could buy a Monster drink with an EBT card? You can buy Cheetos with an EBT card. You can buy Cadbury cream eggs with an EBT card. You think it's funny? The federal government sets those standards, and we as a state have to be abiding by that because of that stupid federal program. It is ridiculous. I don't mind helping someone out that's on their luck that needs supplemental nutrition assistance. That's what that's supposed to be. But you buy food. It should be a gross waste, as Mr. Sitton said. That's fraud, waste, and abuse. If you need the government and the taxpayers to buy food for your table, you should be buying food. And if you're not buying food, you shouldn't get the benefit.
Mr. Sitton.
I agree. We have a long-standing tradition in this country. By the way, I might add that the American people are still, on a per capita basis, the most generous people in the world. We've been that way for a long time. And we do want to help people who are down on their luck. I hear this word time and time again about the dignity. There is no dignity in a handout forever. I understand when people need some help. I think everybody in the room would be reasonable for that. But buying non-essentials with an EBT card and some things that are way beyond the pale, tobacco, alcohol, amongst those things, is unacceptable. Yes, I'll feed you, may put some shelter over you for a while, but we're not paying for all of this other stuff.
Martha McSally.
You know, I met a young lady last night at a meet and greet in Elfrida, and she was telling me a story about how for a short period of time she was on unemployment. For a short period of time she was on food stamps. But she was going through a divorce, a victim of domestic violence, trying to take care of her kids. But she got out of that quickly, and she had that character to be able to get a job and move on from there, even though she's struggling. She told me about her neighbor who's a meth addict who's been living on unemployment and food stamps for years. And she looks next door and is like, how can this be happening? I mean, I'm doing what I need to do. I've reported this abuse. Nobody's doing anything about it. This is not the American way. The American way is about freedom, opportunity, and personal responsibility. I'm okay with giving people a hand up, but not a hand out. So we have got to get control of these programs that are spending our money that people are abusing and staying on, and use them for people like that young lady who is just inspiring to me, and not for her next door neighbor.
Candidates, let's get back to the constitutional duties of the U.S. Congress, which is to pass a yearly budget. Over 1,100 days have passed since the budget has been passed by the U.S. Congress. The President's 2013 budget, was rejected in the House of Representatives 414 to 0. Every Democrat voted against Mr. Obama's budget. The Democrat Senate Majority Leader, Mr. Reid, has stated the Ryan Path to Prosperity, passed by the House overwhelmingly, will never get a hearing in the U.S. Senate. I am certain that you disagree with the passing of continuing resolutions to fund the U.S. government. How would you, as the new GOP member from CD8, differ from Ron Barber on approving the first budget since 2009? Frank Antonori.
Well, having actually voted for a balanced budget and built a balanced budget, I can tell you it's no small task. You don't get a lot of help from the Democratic Party. Matter of fact, we in Arizona, with the era of bipartisanship under Janet Napolitano, when you had a Republican legislature and they worked together with the Democrats, and the Democrat governor, they brought you a $3 billion hole in your budget. When you voted and elected and sent sound fiscal conservatives to Phoenix, you got your first balanced budget in over half a decade. You want to fix that problem in Washington? You do in Washington what we did here in Arizona. You kick the Democrats out, you put in a Republican president, a Republican Senate, and a Republican House, and you put fiscal conservatives, not the squishy kind that want to reach across the aisle and capitulate and spend your money. You put somebody up there that's going to cut spending, balance that budget, and you can get on that path to prosperity. But you will not be able to get a budget through with Harry Reid. So you're going to have to vote a continuing resolution until November, and then after November, when you throw the bums out, then we balance the budget like we did here in Arizona.
Thank you. Dave Sitton.
Elections have consequences. We need common sense fiscal conservatives in Washington, D.C. right away to demand that Congress take care of its fiduciary responsibility as set forth in the United States Constitution. It's pretty simple.
Martha McSally.
The president's budget continues us on a path to overwhelming debt, which is the path to decline for America. So, of course, that shouldn't be passed. We have not taken this debt seriously, and Paul Ryan's plan is a good step to get us going. He has said that this is the single biggest catastrophe that's preventable in America, and that is true. So we need people who have the leadership and the moral courage in Washington, D.C. in order to get this country going on the right path and get this debt under control. We've got to vote people out of office who don't see it that way, and we need to vote people in this election and the next, who do see it this way. It is about a path to prosperity versus this administration and the Democrats in the Senate being about a path to austerity, which is what Greece and others in Europe are dealing with. So we have got to get fiscal discipline under control, and it takes leadership and moral courage, and that's what I bring.
Thank you. Jesse Kelly.
We have to win elections. It's just that simple. Win elections. 414 to 0. You don't even want to know how many of those 414 people didn't vote for President Obama's budget because it didn't raise taxes and spend enough. There were plenty of them in there. The truth is we have to vote out those who are not going to be helpful to the taxpayer, and that simply involves winning elections. But the good news is we're going to. We're going to win in June. We're going to win even more in November. I do believe we will take back the Senate. There's no question we will have a new president. And because our economy is so prosperous, because we have so many resources in this nation, that yes, we can go downhill very quickly as we are now, but we can also come back very quickly. If we get on the right path, if we start heading in the right direction, we can once again wake up every morning and smile because America came back as we always have before.
Okay, we're going to take one final break at the CD8 debate before you get the vote next week. Maybe a surprise question or two and the closing statements from the candidates live here on KNST AM 790 and 97.1 FM.
Glenn Beck, weekday afternoons 3 to 6. Now, the CD8 debate continues live on KNST AM 790 and now 97.1 FM.
All right, we are back. You know, there have been so many great questions. We've actually asked more questions than we had time for. We're actually a little short on time. We're going to go to the closing statements. We're going to go strictly to the 1 minute each closing statements. And one more time, why not? Bruce Ash has done a fantastic job moderating. We'll talk about this tomorrow on my show, by the way. Starting at 6:05. Here is Bruce Ash calling on the candidates for the final statements.
As you close out, we're going to start from Jesse Kelly and move over to the other direction. Why is Ron Barber unfit to seek election to CD8, and why are you going to beat him in the general election? Jesse Kelly. That's a close.
We're going to beat Ron Barber for one reason. We're right on the issues. We believe in lowering taxes and getting out of the way of small businesses. We believe in creating jobs and then letting the free market create jobs. And we believe in lowering gas prices and power bills using American energy. We are right on these issues. The American people are with us on these issues. We came within 4,000 votes of winning this election last time. That's thanks to the work of the people in this room. So before we close, I want to thank you. I want to thank the other candidates on this stage. This is the last time we're going to be together. It's hard work running for office, and it's been an honor to be up here with every one of you. Thank you all tonight. My name is Jesse Kelly. I'm asking for your vote, and it's going to be an honor to be your representative in June. Thank you very much.
Martha McSally.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to come up front here. You know, my father came from poor circumstances, and with hard work, education, and service to his country, he made it out. And he died when I was 12 years old. And before he died, I had a little bit of time to talk to him, and he told me to make him proud. And I got a fire in my belly to do that, to step out and serve. I chose to do that by serving my country. I took an oath of office to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter. So help me God. I put my life on the line for that oath. I put my career on the line for that oath. The same oath is what you take and what I will take as your congresswoman. I am ready to take it again. I am ready to fight for you. We can do this together. I'm Martha McSally. I need your vote and support. I can beat Ron Barber in June, and this is about the future and about leadership, moral courage, and experience in order to get things done and turn this nation around. I'm Martha McSally. I need your vote.
Thank you. Dave Sitton.
I came here tonight because I want to be your representative in Washington, D.C. As you evaluate your choices tonight, I do want you to look at where my supporters come from, all of it, my volunteers, the 240 businesses that know me over my last 38 years, that trust me, that have put their faith in me. This district is where I went to school, I've coached here, I've worked here, I raised my kids here, and I want to represent it desperately in Washington, D.C. I want to do the best job possible. I waited till I'm 57 years old. This will not be a career for me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back there to take the discipline and your wisdom to Washington, D.C. as a citizen legislator as prescribed by our founding fathers. It's a great opportunity for all of us. I do listen. I want to be your representative in Washington, D.C. My name is Dave Sitton. I would love your vote. DaveSitton.com. Thank you.
Senator Frank Antonori.
You know, you know, Ron Barber is just going to go and endorse and support the failed policies that have gotten this country in this mess. He wants to continue this country on Obama's road to ruin. I want to take this country on the path to prosperity. We have a bright future ahead of us. The way you do that is you send a conservative to Washington. There is only one vetted and proven conservative in this race. Only one. I have cut spending. I have reduced the size of government. I have fought illegal immigration. I have fought those battles for you. I have stood up for the state of Arizona in the national spotlight when we were attacked by the federal government and pundits when we voted for SB 1070. I went into enemy territory on MSNBC, and I stuck it to those guys. You have got to send somebody that's going to give you, for once, aggressive, competent, strong representation in Washington, D.C. You need to send a pit bull up there. You earned it. You deserve it. Do it for me. Do it for you. Do it for our kids. Do it for everybody that wants a good congressman that's going to cut spending and get the job done. And again, vote for results and not for the hype and the hope. You know what you get when you vote for hope. Vote for results. I'm Frank Antonori, and I appreciate your vote.
Okay, thank you, candidates. That's going to do it live from here at the Quail Creek Country Club in Green Valley.